Okay, well, it is 3:05, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Um so just to kick us off, my name is Alexia Kimmerling. For a quick visual description, I am a white woman with long wavy blonde hair. I'm wearing clear glasses and a flannel shirt today. And before we get started, I wanted to just review our access features today. We have cart captioning, which you can view by clicking the CC button on your bottom toolbar. If you prefer to view captions in another window, we'll put the stream text link for you in the chat. We also have our interpreters, Amy and Shantae, today. They will be spotlit. And if you have any access issues during the meeting, you can direct message me, Alexia, or the AAPD tech/support account. We're going to try to keep the chat usage a little bit to a minimum. If you do need to use the chat to communicate, you totally can. And April and I will lead it out, but we try not to get the chat going too busy just because it automatically reads out all chats for screen readers, and that can be distracting. All right. So if you do need to use the chat, April and I will read it out. But primarily, we'll invite people to use the raise hand feature, and we can call on you to ask your questions or unmute and share what you want to bring. So thank you all so much for being on today's call. As you guys all know, we are getting so close to election day, and voting has already started in many states, whether you're voting by mail or if you have early voting in your state. So we are truly in the thick of it. And so our civic engagement manager, Dwayne, should be on today to talk a little bit about election day. But I also wanted to, while we're giving them a moment to join, we can just start with some community updates. There's been a lot of exciting work happening since our last meeting, and I want to take a moment to get to highlight that. So I wanted to invite Molly Cole from REV UP Connecticut, if you would like to come on and share a little bit about REV UP Connecticut's disability forum that happened earlier this month. I will pass it over to you.
Thanks, Alexia. I am a white woman with short brown hair, glasses. I'm wearing a red and black patterned jacket. We held our candidates forum, and this is for congressional elections and senatorial elections and presidential elections. We held that on October 9th in both a virtual and in-person format. In person, we had ASL interpreters and Spanish interpreters, and virtually, we also had a virtual channel, an ASL channel, and an English channel. Virtually, we had 290 participants, and in person, we think about 125. It was a fluid group, so they kind of came and went. We had great representation from the candidates themselves, and all the questions that were asked by our moderator were generated by our Cross Disability Lifespan Alliance. So they were generated primarily by people with disabilities. The moderator had a selection of 10 questions on various disability topics to ask each of the candidates, and we gave them 5 minutes at the beginning of their set to talk a little bit about whatever they wanted to discuss, whether it related to disability or it was more broad-based, just introducing themselves to us. We had surrogate representatives for the Trump and Harris campaigns. Everyone else was either in person or virtual. We were missing the congressional incumbent for our 5th district and her opponent, because they were having a debate that night. So neither one of them came. But other than that, It went really well. We had great feedback from the audience. Each member of the audience and each member virtually were given booklets, either in English or Spanish. It had a picture of each candidate. It had a little bit of a blurb about what they covered, what their area was, and a place to make notes about them as they talked. So we were really, really hoping that that allowed people to make their own decisions about where the candidates stood on issues specific to disability. In addition to that event and the outside the main ballroom of the in-person forum, we had a number of tables. We had a full table of REV UP materials. We had the accessible voting machine. We were set up to get people registered to vote if they were there and did not know whether they were registered or what address they were registered under or needed to register. We could basically do all of that. And we had Spanish and English interpreters out at the tables to assist as well. So we were pretty excited about that. My one comment relative to the array of candidates that we had, this is a nonpartisan event, so we invite every candidate that makes it onto the Secretary of the State's ballot. So anybody that was on the ballot got invited. I have to say, we've done this. This was our 7th candidates forum. This year, we had some really, what's the polite term? They were really not well informed candidates. I don't know any other way to say it, except that even our moderator was a little stunned when we finished, and she said to me, "Molly, I've never had to interview people that just didn't seem to be so prepared, so unprepared. This was really a little bit of a challenge, I think, in some ways." And I will say that our incumbents have all been through our candidates forum repeatedly and had the benefit of experience. They know how we run it. They're eager to come back because they know we stick to our agenda, we stick to our schedule. We do not allow audience questions. It's strictly a moderator interview kind of format. So it insulates them from, other kinds of conversation. And with that, Alexia, unless there's something else you want me to cover, I will stop.
Yeah, this is Alexia. Thank you so much for that overview, Molly. I especially really love the idea of giving the attendees that booklet to take
Yeah.
notes on the candidates and including the picture and the name. That is so smart, and that's something that they could take that with them to vote. So I really love that idea. My internet went out for a second, so I might have missed this, but did you share what all levels of office were represented at your candidate forum?
So we have 5 congressional districts in Connecticut. So it was every incumbent and anybody that made it to the Secretary of the State's ballot. We have one senator. Senator Murphy is up for reelection, so his opponent, and I believe there was a third party opponent as well. So there were 2 other opponents for Murphy. So there were 3 for senator. And then we had surrogates for the Harris and Trump campaigns that both came as well. So interestingly enough, the person that the Harris campaign sent was not in Connecticut. She was from their national office, and she was a person with a disability who spoke to their national disability policies. It was actually quite impressive. So, but that was the gamut. We had a number of third party. Connecticut has, like, we had the cheaper gas and groceries party. I mean, we had them all. Anybody that was on the ballot made it. So yeah, it was interesting.
Was it Anastasia Somoza that came, Molly?
Yes, it was. She did a
Wonderful. Yeah,
fabulous
that
job.
is
People were quite impressed with her. Yeah.
that's really great. And sharing for folks if you don't know, Anastasia Somoza is I think her title is Disability Engagement Director
Correct. Yes.
for the Harris campaign. I want to pause and see if there are any questions. I see Mark Johnson has his hand up. Mark, do you have a question for Molly or a comment?
Yeah, well, a comment and a question. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for everything they've done this cycle, and particularly you and your team's leadership. I also want to just thank the folks, especially the third part of the caravan. There was a lot of presence of Rev Up and its volunteers and whatnot at the stops. I'm at Charlotte, North Carolina is my old hometown. Y'all are all over that one. You were up there in Trenton, New Jersey. It really worked well, and I see a lot of potential going forward. What I was wondering is, Molly made that reference to, especially the presidential race. I'm not real savvy sometimes with the different candidates' website, and is what she said Harris's and Trump's representative proposals for our community somewhere, or did I miss that in one of the Rev Up wrap-ups where we can begin to say, well, here's this candidate and what they said, and here's this candidate and what they said. So I'm in particularly interested in that because I know Tony Quello did a really good image about what Trump stands for, but I'll just be curious. So that great work, everybody. We'll survive the next couple of weeks. Remember,
We'll try.
I'm an old guy.
Mark, in terms of what's on the website, we really struggled with that in terms of really both campaigns in finding information specifically on their website. I will say that the Harris campaign, when they came on, did a really nice job of outlining where they were, but I actually haven't gone back to look again. But as we were putting this together, we didn't see anything for either of them.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons we generate questions and ask questions of the candidates, is because oftentimes we can get a better feel for where they stand on critical issues than in just a flat statement from the campaign.
Thanks.
This Alexia, yeah, I definitely agree with what Molly said, and just to add on, I know we've shared in this meeting before, but it was a long time ago. It was at the very start of this year, but AAPD and Rev Up, we did send out disability candidate questionnaires to all of the presidential campaigns. We only got one response, and that was from former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson. We did meet with the Biden campaign team when it was the Biden campaign team, and they had discussed doing a one-pager rather than a response to our survey questions, but we ended up not ever receiving that from them, and we weren't able to get anything from the Harris campaign team. So
one more thing to just tell you, we actually have the recording of that entire event. It was filmed by CTN. That's the Connecticut network. It's our legislative network. Our production company also has the videos of the ASL Spanish and English. Those are going to be posted on our website, but we had to clean them up a little bit. Just there were some issues with some of the video. So that's being done, but for right now, you can view the CTN version. Sadly, it is not captioned, nor does it have sign language on it, because we had a whole channel that we're waiting to post, but it is up there.
Thank you so much, Molly. And I will include that link in our email with the slides afterwards. And I got cut off by my dog's barking, but I just wanted to offer a reflection that I think, obviously it's a bit different now that Harris is running, but when it was Biden and Trump, you essentially have two incumbents, right? Although one not a consecutive incumbent. And I think that made engaging with those candidates a lot more difficult, because they may have felt they had less to prove and didn't need to do as much candidate questionnaires and surveys as someone that's newer on the campaign cycle might. And that's just a personal Alexia reflection and observation, not not a factual observation or an AAPD thought, but that is, um, you know, my kind of take on the situation. Helen, I saw you had your hand up. Did you want to ask a question or say a comment?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of media stuff with organizations nationally through United Church of Christ Disability Ministries. That's what I'm on and whatnot. But with the media end of CTN, would there be any way you could send out something when it goes up on the site so that I can get that out to people? Because I've been getting a lot of people asking also about the disability issues. And I haven't really been able to answer that question because I haven't found it either on the website specific to our issues. So I'd like to get something out so people actually can be more confident when they go out to vote, especially people that are still undecided.
I can get you the CTN link now. It's just I can't give you the actual production company links to the Spanish and ASL because they're still cleaning them up. So
Okay. Well, I'm into whatever I can get, but
okay,
diversity I'm all about, but I appreciate that. And I'm very
sure.
glad to hear this on this call because that's what I was going to ask if anybody heard anything. So thanks.
Sure.
Yes, Alexia, thank you so much, Helen and Molly. I want to go to another one of our community updates, and this is one of our REV UP grantees. We have Adela Lynn-Kravitz from Project Ready, and she is going to share some updates about the Get Out the Vote outreach and strategy that Project Ready has been doing as they work specifically in Asian American immigrant communities and the disability community. Adela, I will pass it over to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, first of all, thank you, Alexia. Thank you for inviting me and sharing, our experience with everybody. Would it be possible I can share my screen? Let me see.
You should be able to now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, and Adela, this is Alexia. Just make sure to visually describe everything that you're sharing, as we do have some folks who are joining that might not be able to see your screen.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, so first
No,
of
you're
all,
good.
first of all, yeah, my name is Adela Lynn-Kravitz. I'm a co-founder and executive director of Project Ready. So Project Ready, it's a non-for-profit organization in New York metro area, serving people with the developmental disabilities, mostly over age of 15. There are, when the older kids are transitioning into adolescence and adulthood. So we primarily help the Asian American community in the New York metro area. And then now this is and then one of the reasons that inspired us to apply for the REV UP grant is the Asian community face a lot of challenges in terms of voting and involved in democratic process. Majority of our group are actually the Asian American from immigrant background, and then they that being minority and then being an immigrant, they have a lot of culture and the language barrier and the stigma. And then at the same time, it's a marginalized group. This is a group of people who have not experienced history of a voting, because the culture they came from did not have a long history of the democracy or not very familiar with the election process or government structure, so political activities, even, forming a group, and those are not encouraged. So, after we get the grant, what the first thing we did is we created an educational material. It's called You Can Vote Too. So this is the deck that we, this is the deck basically we have developed. We wanted to have a educational material that can that can be divided into bite-sized learning material. At the same time, it's presentable, because we wanted to leverage a lot of community opportunities to present and teach, and create the printout at the same time. So one of the good experience we had is definitely created the educational material that's relevant to our community, which is the Asian immigrant community. So that's why our material are bilingual, so they are more accessible to people who does not speak English. We also are able to create a lot of one-pagers and then some of the game-based interactive, and then also Q&A style learning material, and then just to run those in the voter education sessions. So this because it's portable, it's easy to carry, and then we were able to get a lot of messages out in the community. The other place that we found it's very helpful is we leverage the existing platform called SkyCamp. So that's a learning platform we have in the community, which is the typical developed high school volunteer or college volunteer that pair with the teenagers with the developmental disabilities, and then they have those social interaction sessions, and then so those learning material and the game-based learning opportunities can be leveraged to teach about voting and their the political election process and political activities. So these are what I'm showing here is the sort of like the timeline that Project Ready has been engaging. We also have a lot of social media activities and sharing with the activity, get the message out. We have hosted the voter registration and the voting volunteer recruitment and activity. So the content creation is part of the educational material creation process that we have been working on. That just the making the education material more accessible. The voter education sessions, we have done quite a few, and we actually did one this past Saturday, and there's another one, voter volunteer education this coming Monday. These are some of the pictures that from those activities. Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention that, because of these the sharing messages and in the community, we have a lot more of awareness, and these pictures in here, these we have a lot of kids, actually adults, that they are the first time voter, since the primary voting, and these are the pictures of the primary voting. So they're definitely going to be the first time voting in November.
This is
my son.
Alexia. Adela, do you mind if I give some visual description of your images?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It can be hard when you're going through a lot. So, a lot of content. So just kind of giving a description of what's on Adela's screen. She's showing a grid collage of a ton of different photos of Asian Americans, of people of all ages and genders. We have a couple of folks holding up their I voted signs, it looks like. We have people posing um, with images at a candidate meet and greet for a judicial election. And then we also have a couple of images of people registering to vote, shaking hands with a candidate, and learning in a classroom setting. And I'll pass back to you, Adela.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, as I mentioned, we have at least a dozen, new voters this year, and this is what they based on the data of the primary voting. So we definitely have a more in the November voting. The other thing I wanted to mention is this is not so because of our work, the involvement is not just for people with the disabilities themselves, but we also sort of like energized the entire family and then their friends and then and some of the even the service providers. So the ripple effect is it's really amazing. A lot of we for example, this particular that's Kevin, and then so he is the first time voter, and because his involvement and the parents and then grandpa and grandma are registered to vote, and they also have he has several direct service providers, and then they are involved in his voting because they are going to vote with him and to help him to vote. So there are, it's definitely we have energized the disability, Asian disability community because of REV UP work.
This Alexia, that is so fantastic. Thank you for sharing, Adela. Mark, did you have a question or comment?
Just two questions. Is some of that being shared with Foscardi? Chris, Rosa, over at Foscardi? I know they're, I think if they're not part of that circle of information, I'm sure they would like it. And I didn't know, I know Alexa knows Mia with the Disability Justice Initiative over at the Center for American Progress, but she's Asian herself, and she did a lot of work with the Asian community in the 2020 cycle, and is really connected with some of the mainstream groups. So you may have done both those things, but if not, I think what you shown right here will be of great interest to them.
Oh, that's great. That's really nice to know. Yeah, thank you for commenting on that. I would love to connect with them and work together.
This Alexia, that's a great idea, Mark. And Adela, I can definitely get you connected to Mia, and I think she would love to hear about this work for sure. Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, so Alexa, that reminded me last time you connected us with the CPC, the Chinese Planning Council, Caroline Cronin from CPC. So we're doing, actually this is we're doing a lot of work together now. Now this is the one of the event that we're collaborating with this coming Monday.
Just like say that's amazing. That makes me so happy to hear. Yeah, the Chinese Planning Council is another civic engagement group in the New York City area, for those who don't know. And they had a lot to learn about disability and disability engagement. And so Project Ready has been amazing. And I've heard from CPC as well that they have learned so much from you, Adela, and really enjoyed working with your team. So thank you so much for sharing. Are there any other questions or comments for Adela? And I'll read out, we have a comment in the chat from April, who is one of our team members at AAPB here, and she says, Filipino Viet here, and I'm so happy to see all of this, Adela.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, our next community update is from Eric Wellsby at Detroit Disability Power, and he is going to share a little bit about DDP's collaborations with the Election Protection Network and some of their plans for Election Day. And go for it when you are ready, Eric.
Hey, thank you so much. Like you all, it's a hectic time, but we're doing great things. One of the really great things we have going on here in Michigan is we have a lot of disability orgs that really are focused on this work. And one of the things we were able to develop is what we've called our Voters with Disabilities Coalition, which includes organizations like us, Disability Rights Michigan, Disability Network Michigan, the various Centers for Independent Living, along with our state has an accessibility ombudsperson in the Secretary of State's office focused purely on accessibility in elections. And so this has been really great, not only for us focusing on issues we're seeing, but having that direct line to the Secretary of State's office to be able to raise up issues that are occurring, including some that are happening right now. Voting has already started in part of Michigan, with the city of Detroit having its early vote sites opening early. And so we're already having issues. And the rest are going to open here on Saturday. It's a busy time, but having that connection has been huge, to be able to lift up things like getting some better signage related to the voter assist terminals, and things like that the Disability Rights Michigan developed. The Secretary of State's office ran through their approval process, but now we're going to see those are getting pushed out. Clerks are being encouraged. Our hope is over the next between now and the next election, to go from it being encouraged to a little more required to have that better signage. And thank you, Alexa, for explaining that. We call our voter assist terminals are the accessible voting booths. They're VATs here in Michigan. But it's been hugely helpful in having that connection and that support, and having someone that really, this accessible ombudsperson was kind of carved out of another role. And it was originally thought of as like this, he'll be putting a couple hours into it, but can still do his existing job. But very quickly it became realized that no, accessibility around elections is a full-time job. And so we've been very fortunate that our Bureau of Elections and Secretary of State have recognized that and have given this individual a lot more time to do this work, which has allowed us not only to work on systemic things, but also, he makes himself available. We've hosted him twice to come and do VAT demonstrations for our partners and for the community. So people can actually put their hands on accessible voting machines, see how they work, You know, it's one of my favorite things that we've been able to do, because every time we do it, people are just wow. They can't believe that these systems exist. And why didn't anybody tell them? And why aren't they talked about more? And I say that's exactly what we're doing. You know, trying to make these things real, and to get that you know, access, so that people have the knowledge, and knowing that they're not just for people with disabilities, they're for anybody that may, you know, find it useful. One of the interesting things in Michigan, we find that in East Lansing and in Ann Arbor, where Michigan State and University of Michigan are located, we see a higher rate of that usage. And it's because college students love it. They're touchscreen. For them, that's way better than having to fill in all those little bubbles, with a pen on paper. So students love it. And so, you know, it really, you know, provides a great example of when we make these things available, and when we, you know, make it so people know they exist, people will use them, and particularly young people. So I think we're doing a lot of great things here. We have some really great partnerships, going on to help improve things here in Michigan. You know, I see Mark has their hand up. I can pause if you have a question, Mark.
Yeah, maybe it's the same thing. You know, here in South Carolina, we opened up on Monday, and they have a thing called curbside. So people who don't get out of their car, they'll open the door, and it's a rolling voting machine with a canopy over it, for two reasons. One, obviously, if there's inclement weather and you open the door, you're under them. The other thing yesterday was the glare, on the touch screen. And so I might have to do it next time I vote, but you know, you do the touch screen and then it prints it out, and then you confirm what's printed out are your votes, and then you put that in a folder for them. Meaning, you know what I mean? You vote, it's a printout, you confirm the printout, and then they collect the printout. I gotta ask next time if I can take a picture of what printed out of the machine. I mean, I pretty much was a straight ticket guy. There were some amendments and things like that were important, sales tax and stuff like that. So yeah, is that the same thing curbside as you're referring to?
No, the VAT in Michigan, the accessible voting booth, is inside the polling place. So
Oh,
I'm
okay,
I'm
okay.
super interested in what you're talking about. We're a little behind the curve on curbside. We do have it as an option clerks can make available. We don't have it required. We are fixing that. We have legislation that's going into effect that will make it required. I've never heard though of this rolling accessible voting machine. So I'm going to have to do some digging on that, because I think that might be our next fight here in Michigan. If we make curbside required, let's make the machines
It would
being
look
outside
it
required
was like
too.
it was
I
like a
like that a
walker.
lot.
It was like a walker. You know what I mean? Like a
Okay.
walker with a seat, and in the seat was the machine.
Okay.
And it wasn't. I mean, it was specifically designed with that. Do you also work with DESA in
Yeah,
Detroit?
Dessa's my boss, our executive
Okay.
director.
Okay, cool.
So yes, I talk with Dessa constantly.
Y'all do
So
great work.
Thank you so much. But outside of kind of this state level work, you know, GDP, you know, we've been doing a Get Out the Vote campaign. We've been knocking doors, making phone calls, sending mailers. We actually just hit our door goal, but we're not stopping. We still have a week, a little over a week to knock doors, about a week and a half. But we did just hit our goal there. We're super close on our phone goal. We're sending out 120,000 mailers to households. You know, along with we're going to be covering 10 poll sites on election day with our election protection work. And then finally, we're running our accessible poll audit program between the February presidential primary, the August primary, and now the general election. Our hope is with our work and partners to hit somewhere between 400 and 500 polling sites here in Michigan to assess the accessibility, you know, to make sure that they're meeting the standard of the law, which they mostly aren't. But after we get this done here here in a week or so, we'll be working to generate a report that will be shared publicly. You can see our report from 2022 on our website. But that report, not only do we have the bulk report, but we actually break it out for each municipality and send it to that clerk. And then us and partners have clerk engagement teams that actually reach out to those clerks and try to work with them to talk about the problems that we saw, the lack of the barriers, the lack of access, and to find reasonable solutions, particularly the things that are low cost, no cost, like positioning the VAT to protect secrecy, making sure that, push buttons on doors actually work, things like that. But also we're going to transition to having some broader discussions about some of the infrastructure barriers that are going to cost a lot more and require not just clerks, but city councils, township boards, to approve funds to actually fix some of these real infrastructure physical barriers that exist. Because in most cases, these buildings aren't just used for election day. They're public community facilities 365 days a year. And so in my view, like fixing it for using the election as a reason to fix it is great, but we're really fixing them much more broadly, particularly when we talk about schools. Like in the city of Detroit, firehouses are also a lot of times our emergency heating and cooling centers used by our emergency management department. If those places aren't accessible for voting, they're not accessible as heating and cooling centers. They're not accessible for our students. So like this isn't just about me and my work. Like this is about what these spaces are for our communities. And so we really want to work in the next couple of years to put pressure on to get these things fixed, because it's about elections, but it's also about every single day. People live in these communities. They use these spaces and they aren't accessible every day. We only talk about it on election day, but it's an everyday thing. So that's kind of a real quick top level of what we have going on right now with DDP. And I'm happy to answer questions now or offline. I know there's a lot to do in this meeting, but I appreciate the time and I appreciate AAPD for their support and the work everybody here is doing every day.
So Alexia, thank you so much, Eric, for sharing that. Were there any questions or comments for Eric? All right. Well, moving on to our next community update. Becky, you have submitted to share an update about your Dance the Vote event. Can I turn it over to you?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. That I'm in an unfamiliar spot today. So we had two events connected with Dance the Vote. Our big Dance the Vote event happened at the Missouri History Museum in September, and we had 1,100 people come. We had about 17 community resource tables and voter registration, and a whole day of activities centered around voting and accessibility. And we invited everyone from the disability community to come to that. And we had a very large turnout of our voters with disabilities. And we had a full day. Among the activities, we had kids activities planned by the museum K-12 education staff, speeches, songs, a community dance party out front of the museum. And we had a lot of people register or update their registration. And we had our Voters of St. Louis photo booth. And we also had all of this at the Festibility, which is the largest event for people with disabilities and their families in the region. We had 1,400 people who came to that. We also had the photo booth, and we had readings of books for both kids and adults that our group sponsored, including Sean Gold with his new ABCs of Disability children's book. And we talked about voting with the kids as well as the adults. We had the photo booth, we did a cabaret, and we had 1,400 people come to that. And we had more, with two different groups doing voter registration at that, so I don't have my numbers for that yet. But pictures are starting to go up on our Facebook page and our Instagram, which is just Dance the Vote STL. But we are really happy with how things are going, and we worked with, in addition to community things, we worked with two other people who are also REV UP grantees that I don't see on the call, that Election Protection, Missouri Voter Protection Coalition got money for the palm cards. They provided those to have for us at our event for accessible palm cards. And Paraquat was also a REV UP grantee, worked with us at both events. I think that's it.
Alexia, thank you so much, Becky, and congratulations for such a fantastic event. I love how dynamic and fun and educational, and just Dance the Vote's commitment to getting all ages engaged, right? Like, I love your focus on young people who aren't even eligible to vote yet, but can learn about it and get excited to vote. That's really special. Any questions or comments for Becky?
This is Mark. I had a quick, what state was that?
Missouri.
Holy crap. So that was really cool. I bet Colleen Starclough over there in St. Louis, she's an old person like me. I mean, she'd be in crying tears. Did she help out? Great. And I don't know, like, if you put it on a to-do list, it's not like you don't have anything to do, but some of these snippets from your grantees in a short video that's maybe 5 or 7 minutes, I think are newsworthy. We don't have a Disability Vote. We keep saying we have one, but we just have more disabled people registering and more disabled people participating in the process. We haven't proven yet, like educated white women in the suburbs around abortion issues, or black men that Obama's reaching out to, or black voters in general in the South. You can clearly see how they vote, and so therefore you can say, there's the black vote, there's that kind of vote. We're not there. We're on the very cusp of being it. Rutgers can clearly say more of us are registered, more of us participate. But I think we're so close to be able to say, in this election, you're talking 2% differences in 7 or more states. And we could potentially be the vote that pushes. I mean, Bob Kafka, it sounds like a broken record on this, out of Texas, but it's true. If we take ourselves serious enough, you had a couple thousand people benefit from that. And then they took stuff home and they shared that stuff. And then you've got bilingual stuff, and you've got the youth outreach, like the Caravan did the John Lewis High School in Virginia. And I mean, it's amazing, really good stuff. Congratulations.
Thank you. And for the first time, we did not invite any candidates because we are a nonpartisan event, and we had some statewide candidates that made a point to come and be there and talk to our voters. So I think that some of the statewide candidates are realizing that the disability vote is something that needs to be taken seriously.
Yeah, real good point. And I know there have been repeated workshops on this, but I think 501c3s need to not nuke themselves. I mean, register, educate people what their rights are when they vote. But you can do polling, you can do surveys, you can do candidate forums, and you can clearly promote the answers, like the folks out of Connecticut will do. It's just territory that we just starting to put our toes in. But it's all legal. The 1-page sheet that IRS puts out tells you what's legal.
Ms. Alexia, awesome. Thank you. Thank you all so much for this, and congratulations again to Missouri on this event. So I want to just give a quick update and then we'll keep moving. We did have a planned speaker for today to talk about election protection and election day of, as well as some messaging and what to expect after the election. Due to a personal emergency, I've just learned that our speaker is not joining. So just an update for you all there. But there's lots more we can talk about. But just updating you in case you were like, where's the agenda we usually have at the top of this meeting? And it's unusual that we started with community updates. So I apologize for that, that it is a bit of a hectic week. But I wanted to just pause here and see if there were any other community updates that folks wanted to share, and then I have a couple of questions just for discussion if it's helpful or of interest. But just a pause there to see if there are other community updates. Yeah, Karen Jones from Alabama, Rev Up Alabama, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. And I have to go after this, have an advocacy meeting. I've been teleconferencing the probate judge, and it's been going great. He has recruited 30 students to work the polls, of which many of them are special needs. So I'm happy. I think about half are special needs. I work in the I've been speaking to him about election protection, and I went through the a training over zero about communications during the election day, as I guess your speaker was going to speak on. So the messaging of getting to our identity-based communities, especially our disabled groups, what to look for, how to speak and kind of change the conversation if it gets emboldened into another, some negative rhetoric. We expect a large turnout at our precincts this year, so I'll be following up with him as far as assisting those in line. We made sure that our why I can't think today. Our election voting machines, we have them for our disabled individuals who are blind and hearing impaired, and for the workers to, be there to assess, going to be a topic when doing their training, to ensure that everybody is looking out for the disabled community. And I apologize, I didn't describe myself. I am Karen Jones, Black female, caramel tone, I guess, with some long braids and contact, and if that helps any. So this week we'll be hitting some group homes and nursing homes. A lot of our rehab places have closed, so they moved them to the assisted living facilities, if you will, here in Montgomery. And so I'm very excited about that, making sure that they have numbers to reach out to who they need to reach out to should there be anything going on, and my number if they need water or anything. Also, very happy that the federal court granted preliminary injunction barring enforcement of Senate Bill 1 for voters with disabilities. So we can help now. And that was September the 24th that the decision came down from the absentee applications and helping. And Section 208 required that the blind, disabled, or low literacy voters have the ability to receive help from anyone of their choice. And it came after I let my notary expire on August the 11th, because with the new, when they were going through this, I let it expire, myself going to jail for helping disabled voters. So now I'm gonna be back being able to help. And I have other notaries ready if I need them on standby. And that's our update from Alabama.
This Alexia, thank you so much for that update, Karen. And Karen recapped it a little bit, but just for the good of the group, for the good of the record, Senate Bill 1 was a state bill in Alabama that criminalized and restricted the ability for people to help assist voters with their absentee ballots, and it particularly dealt with receiving any type of payment or compensation for providing that assistance, which put at risk so many volunteers and outreach groups. And as Karen mentioned, about a month ago, there was a temporary injunction, which is when a court says, we're still waiting to rule on this full lawsuit, but as of right now, we don't think that the state law should be enforced. So that meant that on the ground workers like Karen were able to go ahead and assist people with their absentee ballots. So Karen and other REV UP Alabama members have been frantically doing a ton of voter registration and outreach and assistance these last couple of weeks as they've finally felt safe to be able to. And one other piece I wanna just share about that is that even though that injunction, that order came from the court, it took a while for the actual circuit clerks, who are the people on the county level that oversee absentee voting in Alabama, to know about the change in the law and to start accepting in allowing voter assistance. So I want to give a shout out to REV UP Alabama members there, because some of them actually carried the physical injunction to their county circuit clerks to prove that they were allowed to move forward with this assistance. So Alabama has really been doing so much, and I'm really amazed and proud of them. And that reminds me to mention and share a celebration of another Senate Bill 1 in Texas, which several of our REV UP Texas members, including a couple that are on our call today, Lydia and Bob, were plaintiffs in the case. And they recently had a fantastic victory, ruling that this criminalizing of absentee ballot assistance goes against the Voting Rights Act. Lydia and Bob, I know you all have spoken about this case on our call before, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if there's anything you wanted to share, I will leave space for you. All right, no.
Bob, I don't see Bob. He is on though.
Oh, he was on. He keeps coming on and off. He might be having issue connections. But go ahead, Lydia.
So I could go. I was hoping he would do it. Yeah, so I think it was October 11th with the SB1 case, Judge Javier Rodriguez ruled that the provisions dealing with, like you said, assisters violated the Voting Rights Act. And the case explicitly mentioned Laura Helverson, Nancy Crowther, Amy Litzinger, and me. So there was that. Did you want me to do the other updates? And that was almost, let's see, October 11th. I think we testified on October the 13th and 14th and the San Antonio Western District Court. So it was almost a year. And now, while the provisions, those provisions were knocked down, they're still in place because they don't want to put anything into effect until after the election. However, the part dealing with the criminal penalties and whatnot, the judge removed those. So so we can, it's still officially in effect until after the election, but nothing can really be done about the assisters. Did you want me to do other updates, or I know we're short on time?
Yeah, no, go for it, Lydia. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, so of course, REV UP Texas did these video podcasts to encourage the disability vote. And those were originally released during Disability Voting Rights Week. We had an LGBTQ event at the Montrose Center dealing with disability and trans voters and voter suppression attempts dealing with IDs, name changes, and possibly removing the name or going back to the dead names of trans people on IDs. And with that, we partnered with LGBTQ groups, the Harris County Elections Office, Tanisha Hudspeth's office, and other groups. Then with the League of Women Voters, we made a video tutorial dealing specifically with disability voting rights and access basics. And we held 8 courses at the local library in an area where voter turnout, tends to be low, to educate people in the community about not just disability access issues, but IDs, ballot by mail, curbside, how to navigate the League of Women Voters website and where they can get information on that. Then we did a University of Houston Clear Lake event. And again, we collaborated with several different groups on that and created PowerPoints on disability voting basics. There was an ABC 13 interview aired on television and an article that explicitly mentioned REV UP and REV UP Texas, and they gave the link went to AAPD's website. Then we've had an incessant social media presence trying to get out the vote. Let's see, I already went over that. Our group in Spring, Texas, they've made calls. They've done canvassing. In San Antonio, they last week hosted a university event, and they made videos that they're putting out through it's a disability SA as REV UP, and they've been sharing those. Recently in El Paso, the El Paso REV UP went out and voted together, and they've been engaged in various forms of voter outreach and things of that nature. Beaumont, our groups in Beaumont have been engaged in voter outreach. They had candidates to speak at their events. The same goes for Dallas and in Austin. Of course, we've been working closely with Disability Rights Texas, and they're taking intake calls. They've made videos, and they're providing information. Our attempts to reach out to LRAD's people for the candidates survey were rather disappointing. So yeah, the candidate survey crews never answers. So the Houston folks at the Houston Center of Independent Living had accessible voting machines demonstrations, and of course they too hosted the Disability Rights Week party. So what does this say? Oh, MOPD and Disability Rights Texas recently at our Houston Commission on Disabilities meeting had the county election officials out. They brought voting machines. We had it live streamed, people asking questions. You were there using the voting machines. I had a lot of questions that I wanted clarified since it was being live streamed out to people in the community. So I asked some questions that I thought people might want. And Disability Rights Texas had a voter outreach and accessible voting machines at a group for Black, blind, disabled people, and another event for the larger blind community. And I think I'm tired. I can't wait for this election to be over, and I want kittens all over me too. So
Alexia, thank you so much for those updates, Lydia. I'm always amazed. Texas is such a huge state, and you so much on in so many different parts of the state. And I agree. I think we need to all go to Amelia's house in upstate New York after the election and celebrate with kittens. Amelia, we've
also
just invited like 45 people to your house. I hope that's okay.
Hey, Bob, you're back. Bob, did you want to add anything? He probably could
No,
fill in on what I missed.
No, you hit it. The only thing, and it really is a tribute to the grant we got. We actually subcontracted with over 10 cities, and that Lydia did a good job of summarizing what each of the groups did. But we focused on one day, September the 10th, during Disability Voting Rights Week, and so we built up. And that's how, without the grant dollars, we would not have been able to do it. And, we took a concept that, because Texas was so big, rather than have every group try to apply themselves, we sort of did a community organizing approach of just getting all the cities that were interested and had people to applied for a small grant, and then on September 10th we did a statewide Zoom, and like I said, Lydia did an excellent job.
Actually, I didn't really cover the Disability Rights Voting Rights Week thing, Bob, so I'm glad you brought that up.
And the only comment I have is, and I'm sure everybody on this call knows, but every state has disability rights. Tennessee, disability rights. St. Louis, that actually they get the HAVA money, and they are the ones that usually can enforce any problems you have. And I know I'm probably speaking to the choir, as they said, but if there is, we have that 1-800 number that we've really promoted a lot. And the other thing Lydia said, which I really want to emphasize for the future, we have a really great relationship with the League of Women Voters in Texas that really has helped build, our reputation as, part of the voting coalition in Texas. So, but really, thank you, Rev Up National.
The League has done a really great job of promoting our perspectives and posts and lifting us up. It's been an invaluable relationship. And we made those, Bob and them made those great yard signs with Power the Disability Vote that I have in my front yard, and I catch people going very slowly and looking at it. So those have been really cool. And I loved what El Paso did. They all took pictures. They brought it with them to the polling location as a big group and took pictures of themselves with it. And it was just, I loved, Josue's doing great stuff in El Paso too.
So, Alexia, thank you so much, Rev Up Texas. That is really wonderful updates. I want to see. We have about 15 minutes left, but I want to see if we probably have time for one or two more community updates. I saw Mark Dixon in the chat mentioned the REV UP Virginia events this year. Mark, did you want to share anything?
Well, that just the John Lewis High School had been planning for 6 months. It's over there in Virginia near Alexandria. It's Fredericksburg, and they made it they have a,
they have what they call a webinar for that people that couldn't attend. They they had they had a webinar, a disability voting rights webinar, which they hope to have again next year.
yeah, Mark, their teacher, they have within the high school, they have the John Lewis Leadership Academy.
And also,
yeah, and so Mark, they're gonna continue that. One named Linda Harris is actually from Maryland, connected the caravan with Rev Up, because I know Linda's been real involved in the Georgia one. And then the teacher there who's over the curriculum there, after they did their event at the school, they went over to the FDR Memorial, and then they went over to the Capitol steps where the crawl was. And Anita Cameron got on the phone with them to describe what it was like that day when she crawled. So they're in it. It's like, I think it was Karen from Alabama. Is that, did I get the name right? Karen? Was,
Yes.
the Southern Poverty Law Center obviously has been real helpful with the Georgia case as well, that I know Stacey Ramirez didn't know about. And next year is the 60th anniversary of the march from Montgomery to Selma. And so the National Park
434 number.
The National Park Service has reached out planning
when Dad gets in a 434 number call.
This Alexia, Mark, I think you might be unmuted, Mark Dixon.
Oh.
I'm just gonna go ahead and mute Mark Dixon. I know he was sharing some updates, but I think we're getting his background noise.
Yeah, there's
yes,
plenty of time to do more. I'll let the others, because I know you'll be having a lot more calls between now and 2025.
Yes, absolutely. Rev Up Alabama members are definitely thinking about and talking about planning for the Selma anniversary, and actually Karen Jones does organizations for does organizing for Selma Jubilee each year. And I know you mentioned Southern Poverty Law Center, and they are one of the groups involved in Alabama's Senate Bill 1 lawsuit.
So, and also Rev Up Virginia had a thing with my local cell in Hampton, Virginia, and they wanted to reach out to the rural and economically disadvantaged areas where they hope to do that again next year. And I also just recently attended an event with my local cell today, and they had some Rev Up stickers. Rev Up stickers and AAPD stuff.
So Alexia, thank you so much. That's really exciting to hear. Mark, thank you for sharing that. So I know we've got about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to just. Oh, yep. Go ahead. Did you have something else?
This is I'm showing one of the stickers that one of the stands that they had at today's annual meeting with AAPD on it.
At the ANL meeting, I'm not sure I know that acronym.
At their annual meeting. At the CNL's annual meeting.
At the annual meeting, gotcha.
Yeah,
Mark.
At the CNL's annual meeting, because we've been partnering with the Virginia Association of Centers for Independent Living, and I'm on their consumer advisory committee at Insight, and I was told to contact the Virginia Association of Centers for Independent Living, and now the REV UP Virginia coordinators contacted the local Centers for Independent Living, contacted the president of the Virginia Association of Centers for Independent Living, and now mostly all the cells in Virginia are working with REV UP.
That's really great to hear, Mark. And thank you for organizing that outreach. That's really great.
Yeah, yes, and also
Mark, are you there? Mark Dixon?
and al- and also and, and also so we next year we plan to expand more to the rural areas in Virginia. So that's all I have to say.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's going to be a tough back-to-back for Virginia. Next year is a big election year in Virginia, with their gubernatorial, their governor election, and also I think a lot of state legislative elections in Virginia next year too. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, we are coming to a close, and one thing I wanted to definitely touch on this week that I'm sure lots of you are thinking about too, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I think with this year's presidential election, polling showing the race being very close, I think it's extremely likely that we're not going to be able to have a clear result on election day. And we need to be prepared to reassure our communities that taking time to count the vote is a good thing, and that, you know, not having information on the day of is stressful and hard, but that we want to take the time to count every vote to make sure that every vote counts. So I will be sharing some messaging and graphics with you all to help prepare for that, but I would really welcome if any of you have thoughts on messaging or strategies, or if you're already having those conversations. I would love to hear from you. We have maybe 1 or 2 minutes to hear from folks on this if anyone wants to share their thoughts. Helen asked, will AAPD have something up around patience with the counting of the vote? Yes, absolutely, Helen. And I hope to be able to have some shareable things for you all as well. All right, the other thing that I wanted to, go ahead, Helen, yeah.
Sorry, I'm turning my voiceover on and off and I couldn't find reactions. So, I'm really glad that you brought this up, because I'm going to check in with the United Church of Christ mental health ministry and our disability ministry to see if we might be able to come up with some stuff around patients while we wait for the count. So thanks for raising that up. I didn't even think about that. So thanks.
Now I was stuck on mute. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Helen. The other thing that I wanted to share with you all that some of you might have seen already, as it's been floating around social media today, but New Disabled South, Detroit Disability Power, Disability Culture Lab, and the American Association of People with Disabilities collaborated together on a short ad about voting. I'll put the link in the chat, but I'll also share my screen if we want to. Actually, I don't know. Sometimes sharing videos, it doesn't work when I'm not prepared to do it. So maybe I'll just put the link in the chat. But I definitely encourage you to watch the video. It features multiple Rev Up Georgia members in it, and they did a fantastic job. And this will be airing in a couple of different states, and the slogan is "Fight beside us or get out of our way," and it's a message to politicians and lawmakers about including listening to the disability community. So definitely encourage you to watch that and share it if you would like. All right, and I appreciate you all being on today and going with the flow on our very community-based agenda with our last-minute change of speaker availability. Before we hop off, are there any last-minute questions, concerns, things that folks want to share with the group?
This is Bob. It's not specific, but I do a podcast called Barrier-Free Futures, and next week's guest is going to be the world-famous Alexia Kemmerling as the guest, and it will air Saturday, November 2nd, just before the election. And so I'm sure Alexia is going to have some powerful words of get out and vote. So Barrier-Free Futures, I don't know if people listen to it, but if not, this is the one you want to listen to. Alexia will be powerful.
Oh, thank you so much, Mark. Only world famous because of your world famous podcast. And that actually, not related, but it reminded me, Mark, I wanted to say, I heard a couple of people giving updates about training people with disabilities to be poll workers. If you are a person with a disability and you know someone who is disabled who is serving as a poll worker on election day, please email me. We are trying to get folks connected to a reporter doing a story about this topic. She specifically wants to talk to people who are disabled poll workers this election. So if you've worked one in the past, not relevant for this story, but if you're working this election, please let me know. I've reached out to a couple of folks, but would love to get more included. So I'm putting my email in the chat. All right. I saw Rainey, you had your hand up. Did you have a question or update?
Oops. Let me get my video. Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to say this is awesome to again be reconnected with Rev Up. I've been kind of quiet for different reasons. But anyway, I was responsible for bringing Rev Up to Fort Worth, Texas, and now I live in Hawaii. And finally, I'm going to be talking to Alexia about bringing Rev Up to Hawaii, Maui County, Hawaii. There is so much happening there. So here, there is so much happening, and a lot of grassroots things. And so I'm just very excited to again be reconnected and really pushing Rev Up. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to do something in this short amount of time before the election. But I've been talking, and your predecessor did a presentation for our Maui County Commission on Persons with Disabilities. So they are familiar with us. So thank you. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you very much.
Alexia, thank you so much for being here, Rainey, and for your longtime efforts with Rev Up, and very excited to work with you in the coming months and weeks. All right. Well, folks, we have reached our time for today. Thank you again for being here. 12 more days until everyone will have voted and our election season will be over. And I command all of you to take a lot of naps and take a break, please, and pet some kittens if you are so lucky. And I hope to see you all soon. I do hope to have one more national call at the end of the year, just to kind of debrief together and think about next year. But I will reach out to you all about that. And thank you so much and have a great rest of your Thursday.